In the vast expanse of space, where stars twinkled like distant approval ratings, Captain Jack Holloway's rust bucket of a ship drifted between jobs. The faded lettering on the hull read Holloway's Pest Management Solutions. We kill what bugs you. Jack considered it the height of marketing genius. The Galactic Federation considered it primitive linguistic humor indicative of humanity's obsession with death. But hey, you take what you can get when you're a disgraced former Federation Extermination Corps officer turned private contractor. Bert, any incoming transmissions? Jack called out, his boots propped on the console, a protein bar halfway to his mouth. The ship's AI flickered to life, its holographic interface materializing as a clipboard-wielding bureaucrat in a bow tie, a daily reminder of Jack's contempt for authority. None whatsoever, Captain, Bert replied, adjusting his virtual glasses, though I'm detecting an unusual amount of oxygen being wasted by your continued breathing. Jack sighed. You know, most ships get an AI assistant that's actually, I don't know, assistant-like. Most ships aren't commanded by someone who reprogrammed their AI's personality matrix while drunk on Centaurian whiskey, Bert countered. Speaking of poor life choices, your financial status remains at catastrophic. Jack groaned. It had been 3 months since their last contract, an infestation of telepathic fleas on a luxury space yacht. The payment had barely covered fuel costs after the owner discovered his prized Venusian carpet damaged by Jack's proprietary chemical solution, which was mostly vodka and hairspray. The Galactic Federation's official stance on human extermination methods was well documented, excessively violent, environmentally questionable, and displaying a disturbing enthusiasm for the termination of other life forms. This from a coalition where half the member species had evolved as apex predators. The comm system suddenly blared to life with the Federation's priority signal. Incoming transmission from Galactic Federation Central, Bert announced, somehow making his holographic eyebrow rise in surprise. Priority level. Urgent. Put it through, Jack said, hurriedly removing his feet from the console and attempting to look professional. The view screen flickered, revealing a thin, pale blue alien with enormous eyes that blinked vertically. The Phloxians, notorious throughout the galaxy for their immaculate habitats and obsessive cleanliness. Their home planet was rumored to be so pristine that dirt had been legally banned. Captain Holloway, the Phloxian said, voice melodic yet sharp. I am Administrator Plex of Colony World Phlox-Epsilon. We require your services. The alien practically choked on the last word. Administrator Jack nodded, trying not to look too eager. What seems to be the problem? We have an infestation, Plex whispered, as though the word itself might contaminate the transmission. Our colony is being overrun by the administrator's face contorted with disgust. Vermin. Jack suppressed a smile. The Phloxians, with their obsessive cleanliness, calling anyone for pest control was like a priest calling an exorcist, an admission of failure so profound it bordered on religious crisis. I understand your distress, Jack said solemnly. My team specializes in discreet removal of unwanted biological entities. Yes, Plex interrupted impatiently. We are aware of your species' enthusiasm for extermination. That is precisely why we have contacted you. Standard Federation protocols have failed. The Colony Council has authorized me to offer triple the standard rate. Jack maintained his professional demeanor while mentally calculating how many ship upgrades that would cover. We can depart immediately. Please transmit the colony coordinates and any relevant information about the infestation. Already done, Plex said. And Captain, discretion is paramount. This situation is embarrassing. The transmission ended, and Jack let out a whoop of excitement. Bert, wake up Mack and Dr. Vega. Tell them we've got work. Oh joy, Bert droned. Another opportunity to watch you three stumble through an ecosystem with all the grace of a drunk rhinoceros. Shall I prepare the "we're sorry we made things worse" form in advance? Jack ignored him. The Phloxians were notoriously difficult clients and famously wealthy. If his team could handle this job without causing an interstellar incident, they might finally get off the Federation's blacklist. As the ship's engines hummed to life, Jack couldn't help but grin. Vermin removal was his specialty, after all. How complicated could it possibly be? Mack Donovan lumbered into the briefing room, his massive frame barely clearing the doorway. The weapons specialist was nursing a steaming cup of what he called coffee and everyone else called toxic sludge. "This better be good, Jack," he grumbled. "I was in the middle of calibrating the new sonic disruptors." "Triple pay," Jack replied, which immediately straightened Mack's posture. Dr. Elena Vega arrived next, her lab coat pristine despite the ship's perpetual state of disarray. Her datapad was already in hand, scrolling through information. "Phloxians?" she asked, eyebrow raised. "This should be interesting. Their biology is fascinating. Their immune systems are so hyperactive they practically sterilize their surroundings by breathing. Which makes an infestation on their colony all the more peculiar," Bert chimed in, his hologram appearing at the head of the table. "The Phloxians make germaphobes look like mud wrestlers." Jack activated the holographic display, showing a gleaming white colony of geometric precision. Phlox-Epsilon. Terraformed moon, population approximately 5,000. According to their reports, the infestation began 3 standard months ago. "What exactly are we dealing with?" Mack asked, fingers already twitching toward his weapon catalog. Jack pulled up the images the Phloxians had sent. The crew stared in confusion at what appeared to be squirrels. Dr. Vega leaned forward, adjusting her glasses. "They're worried about squirrels?" "Not just any squirrels," Jack said. "According to the data, these are genetically modified Earth squirrels. They've apparently adapted to the local environment and are reproducing at an alarming rate." Mack snorted. "So we're being paid triple to deal with some bushy-tailed tree rats? Easiest job ever." "I'd caution against underestimating any life form that survived adaptation to an alien environment," Dr. Vega warned. "And the Phloxians must be desperate if they're calling us." The ship's communication system chimed, and Administrator Plex's face appeared on screen. "Captain Holloway," the Phloxian said, looking even more distressed than during their first conversation. "Have you reviewed the situation?" "We're analyzing it now, Administrator," Jack replied smoothly. "These creatures," Plex's voice dropped to a horrified whisper, "they're everywhere. They damage our structures, contaminate our food supplies, and the Administrator shuddered visibly. They defecate. In public." Dr. Vega coughed to hide a laugh. "We understand the severity," Jack said gravely. "Can you tell us if there have been any attempts at removal already?" "Our standard sanitation protocols proved ineffective," Plex admitted, clearly embarrassed. "The creatures are remarkably resilient and seem to thrive despite our efforts. We attempted sonic deterrence, but they adapted within days. Chemical repellents proved equally futile." "And lethal measures?" Mack asked bluntly. Plex's vertical eyelids fluttered in distress. "The Galactic Federation Conservation Act prohibits the deliberate extinction of any species without approval." The bureaucracy involved, the Administrator trailed off in despair. "Which is why you called us," Jack finished. "We operate with certain flexibilities." "Precisely," Plex agreed. "We don't care how you remove them, just that they're gone when you're done. Our citizens are in crisis, Captain. Some have reported seeing these creatures engaging in reproduction in broad daylight." Behind Jack, Mack was silently shaking with laughter. "We'll handle it with the utmost discretion," Jack promised. "We'll arrive at Phlox-Epsilon within 48 standard hours." When the transmission ended, the crew erupted in laughter. "Did you see his face when he said defecate?" Mack wiped tears from his eyes. "This isn't just about squeamish aliens," Dr. Vega said, composing herself. "If these squirrels have adapted to an alien environment this successfully, they could represent a genuine ecological concern. Or they could be exactly what they look like, squirrels," Jack said. "Either way, we're getting paid triple to deal with them. Bert, set course for Phlox-Epsilon. Mack, prep the non-lethal capture equipment. Dr. Vega, I want a full analysis of those squirrels when we arrive." Shall I prepare the standard "we accidentally made everything worse" apology template? Bert asked dryly. Not this time, Jack said confidently. How hard could it be to deal with a few squirrels? Dr. Vega and Mack exchanged glances. They'd heard that before. The descent to Phlox-Epsilon was as smooth as Jack's pickup lines were not. Their ship, the unfortunately named Verminator, touched down on a landing pad so spotless it could have doubled as an operating table. Sweet mother of cleanliness, Mack whispered as they disembarked. You could eat off the ground here. Please don't, Dr. Vega muttered. You'd probably be arrested for contamination. The colony was a vision of sterile perfection. Every building was a pristine white geometric shape, streets laid out in perfect grids and not a speck of dust in sight. Even the air smelled like it had been filtered, pasteurized and individually approved by a committee. Administrator Plex awaited them, flanked by a delegation of anxious-looking Phloxians, each wearing what appeared to be a personal air purification unit. Captain Holloway, Plex greeted them without extending a hand. Physical contact was apparently where the Phloxians drew the line. Thank you for your prompt arrival. The situation has deteriorated. As if on cue, a small, furry creature darted across the immaculate plaza, leaving tiny footprints on the gleaming surface. 2 Phloxian maintenance workers immediately rushed to disinfect the area, looks of pure horror on their faces. I see what you mean, Jack said, watching the squirrel scamper up a decorative tree, one of the few non-geometric objects in view. We'll get started right away. Their first attempt at removal was traditional, humane traps baited with nuts and seeds. They placed 200 traps throughout the colony's central district, confident they'd have the problem contained by morning. The next day they found every trap sprung, every bait taken, and not a single squirrel captured. Clever little bastards, Mack growled, examining a trap. They figured out how to trigger the mechanism without getting caught. Their second attempt involved sonic emitters that Dr. Vega calibrated to be unbearable to squirrel ears while harmless to Phloxians. They activated the system at dusk, expecting to find disoriented squirrels ready for collection in the morning. Instead, they found the colony's squirrel population seemingly unaffected, and a delegation of very angry Phloxians. Your sonic weapon, Plex said through clenched teeth, has caused severe discomfort to 17 of our citizens. That's impossible, Dr. Vega protested. The frequency shouldn't affect Phloxian physiology. Our preliminary investigation suggests the squirrels have repurposed your devices, Plex explained, looking ill. They've somehow altered the emitters to project the sounds of their mating calls at high volume. Throughout the night, back on the ship, Jack paced the conference room. I don't understand. These are squirrels, not evil geniuses. Actually, Dr. Vega said, reviewing her data, my analysis shows they've undergone significant adaptation. Their intelligence appears to have been enhanced, possibly by the same genetic modification that helped them adapt to this environment. So we're dealing with super squirrels? Mack asked incredulously. Not super, Dr. Vega corrected. Just significantly more adaptable than their Earth cousins. And there's something else. She pulled up an environmental scan. These squirrels aren't just pests. They're actually fulfilling a crucial ecological role here. What role? Jack asked, frowning. They're the primary distributors for the colony's plant life. The terraforming process introduced Earth plants, but without Earth's ecosystem, pollination and seed distribution became a problem. These squirrels are actually keeping the oxygen-producing plants spreading across the moon. So if we remove them entirely, Jack began. The colony's oxygen production could be compromised, Dr. Vega finished. Not immediately, but over time. Well, that complicates things, Jack muttered. Does it? Mack asked. The Phloxians asked us to remove the vermin, not save their ecosystem. They're paying triple, remember? Bert, what do you think? Jack asked. The AI's hologram appeared, looking unusually thoughtful. I believe the appropriate human expression is caught between a rock and a hard place. Perhaps you should inform the Phloxians of the squirrel's ecological importance. And tell them we can't do the job? After they've already seen 2 failed attempts? Jack shook his head. No, we need a win here. Let's try one more direct approach. The third attempt involved a synthetic pheromone that Dr. Vega assured would lure the squirrels to a central location where they could be captured en masse. The result was catastrophic. Not only did the squirrels ignore the pheromone, but it attracted every insect-like creature within a 5-mile radius. The Phloxians were forced to activate their emergency decontamination protocols, bathing the entire central plaza in UV light and disinfectant. Administrator Plex was beyond furious. You have 3 days to solve this problem, Captain Holloway, or our agreement is void. And I will personally ensure that every colony in the Federation knows of your incompetence. As they trudged back to the ship, Jack couldn't help but notice how the squirrels seemed to be watching them, their little eyes gleaming with what looked suspiciously like amusement. We need to get serious, Jack announced, slamming his fist on the conference table. No more kid gloves. What's your definition of serious? Dr. Vega asked warily. Because I'm still concerned about the ecological implications. Controlled predators, Jack said. We introduce a natural enemy that will hunt the squirrels without disrupting the rest of the ecosystem. And what predator did you have in mind? Mack asked, already looking skeptical. Synthetic robotic hawks, Jack said, pulling up a schematic. Bert and I worked on the design all night. They'll target only the squirrels, capture them alive, and bring them to a central location. Where we'll do what with them? Dr. Vega asked. We can't just remove them without addressing their ecological role. We'll cross that bridge when we come to it, Jack said dismissively. Mack, how quickly can you build these? Mack examined the schematics. With the fabricator running at full capacity? Maybe 12 hours for a first prototype, another 12 for a batch of 20. Do it, Jack ordered. While Mack worked on the hunters, Bert made a curious discovery in the colony's historical records. Captain, the AI called. I believe I found something relevant to our situation. What is it? Jack asked, looking up from his work. According to these archives, approximately 50 Earth years ago, a human scientific expedition visited Phlox-Epsilon. They were studying the terraforming process and noted concerns about the lack of natural seed dispersal. Let me guess, Jack said. They introduced the squirrels? Precisely, Bert confirmed. The expedition's xenobiologist, a Dr. Martin Holloway, released 20 genetically modified squirrels as an experiment. Jack froze. Did you say Holloway? Indeed, Bert replied. I believe the human term is ironic, yes? You've been hired to remove creatures your ancestor introduced. Great-grandfather, Jack muttered. He was always the black sheep of the family, believed in environmental balance over human convenience. A concept you might want to reconsider, Dr. Vega said, entering the room. I've been analyzing soil samples from around the colony. The squirrels aren't just dispersing seeds, they're actually improving the soil quality with their activities. Their poop is fertilizer, Jack translated. Fantastic. Mine. 24 hours later, the robotic hawks were deployed. They soared above the colony, their sensors locked onto squirrel heat signatures. The Phloxians watched in fascination as the mechanical predators swooped down with precision, capturing squirrels in specialized containment units. For the first time, it seemed like Jack's team was making progress. Within hours, they had captured over 100 squirrels. It's working. Jack celebrated back on the ship. At this rate, we'll have the majority of the population contained by tomorrow. And then what? Dr. Vega pressed. I'm serious, Jack. Removing these squirrels without a replacement plan will have consequences. We'll release them somewhere else, Jack suggested. Another part of the moon, away from the colony. They'll just come back, Dr. Vega argued. They've adapted specifically to this environment. Their debate was interrupted by an urgent call from Administrator Plex. Captain Holloway. The Phloxian's voice was tight with barely controlled panic. Your flying machines have stopped functioning. What? Jack checked the control panel. Sure enough, all 20 robotic hawks were offline. What happened to them? The creatures, Plex said, voice trembling. They organized. The video feed showed the aftermath. The squirrels had somehow coordinated an attack on the robotic hawks, deliberately short-circuiting them by urinating on their exposed control panels. Worse, they'd freed the captured squirrels and were now using pieces of the broken hawks as tools. This is unprecedented, Dr. Vega whispered, watching the footage. They're demonstrating collective intelligence. Meanwhile, Dr. Vega's warnings about ecological disruption were beginning to materialize. With so many squirrels captured even temporarily, the colony's carefully balanced ecosystem was showing signs of stress. Plants were withering without seed dispersal, and soil quality was declining without the squirrels' natural fertilization. We need to change our approach, Jack admitted. Dr. Vega, what if we tried to modify their behavior instead of removing them? Make them less visible to the Phloxians? I might have a compound that could work, Dr. Vega said thoughtfully. It would reduce their daytime activity and their reproductive rate, but I'd need to test it first. No time, Jack insisted. The Phloxians are at their breaking point. If we don't show progress by tomorrow, we lose the contract. Against her better judgment, Dr. Vega prepared the compound, and they distributed it throughout the colony in food sources likely to be consumed by squirrels. The next morning, Jack awoke to emergency alarms. The compound had worked too well. The squirrels had indeed become less active, but the sudden change had triggered a cascade effect through the ecosystem. Insects were overrunning areas previously controlled by squirrel activity, and plant growth was already showing signs of distress. What have we done? Jack whispered, watching as Phloxian emergency teams in hazmat suits attempted to contain swarms of insects never before seen in such numbers. Exactly what I warned you about, Dr. Vega said grimly. We've disrupted an ecosystem we barely understand. The Phloxian High Council chamber was silent as Jack finished explaining the situation. 5 senior Phloxians stared at him with their large vertical pupils dilated in what he now recognized as extreme distress. Let me ensure I understand correctly. The head counselor finally spoke. You are saying that these vermin are actually essential to our colony's survival? That's correct, Jack confirmed. The squirrels are integral to your ecosystem. They distribute seeds, improve soil quality, and control insect populations. Without them, your carefully terraformed environment will collapse within months. This is preposterous. Administrator Plex erupted. We hired you to remove a pest, not lecture us on ecological balance. The pest was introduced by humans in the first place, Jack admitted. My own great-grandfather, in fact. He wasn't trying to cause problems, he was trying to solve one. Without a natural seed dispersal mechanism, your terraforming was failing. So you're saying we must tolerate these creatures defecating on our pristine walkways? Another counselor asked, looking physically ill at the thought. Not necessarily, Dr. Vega interjected. We believe we can implement a solution that preserves the ecological benefits while minimizing the visible impact on your colony. What kind of solution? The head counselor asked skeptically. Jack took a deep breath. We need to create designated green zones throughout your colony, areas where the squirrels can fulfill their ecological role without interfering with your daily lives. And how would you keep them confined to these green zones? Plex demanded. A combination of environmental modifications and biological incentives, Dr. Vega explained. We'd make these zones irresistible to squirrels while making your colony centers less attractive. This sounds like surrender, Plex said bitterly. We are Phloxians. We do not compromise with vermin. With respect, Administrator, Jack said firmly, you're facing a choice between some squirrel inconvenience or watching your entire colony's ecosystem collapse. The emergency you're experiencing now with the insects? That's just the beginning. Outside the council chamber, the situation was deteriorating rapidly. The insect swarms had grown, feeding on the now unregulated plant growth. Several of the colony's environmental systems were showing critical warnings as the delicate balance shifted further out of alignment. We don't have time for debate, Jack insisted. Every hour we delay makes the situation worse. And if we refuse your solution? The head counselor asked. Then we'll complete our contract as requested, Jack said grimly. We'll remove every squirrel from this colony. And when your ecosystem collapses completely, you can explain to the Federation why you ignored explicit warnings from qualified experts. The council chamber erupted in angry murmurs. Phloxians valued cleanliness above all else, but they were also logical beings. The evidence of impending ecological disaster was becoming impossible to ignore. Very well, the head counselor finally conceded. You may implement your green zones, but I warn you, Captain Holloway, if this fails, the consequences will be severe. Back on the Verminator, the crew worked frantically to develop their plan. We need to move fast, Jack told his team. The ecological cascade is accelerating. Bert, what's your analysis? The colony will experience complete environmental system failure within 72 hours if current trends continue, the AI reported. Oxygen production is already down 17%. Mack, have you finished the habitat modifications? Jack asked. Yeah. Almost, the weapons specialist replied, surprisingly adept at constructing the specialized green zones. But these are just temporary measures. We need a long-term solution. I think I have one, Dr. Vega said, looking up from her lab station. But it's risky. At this point, I'll take risky over certain failure, Jack said. What's your idea? Selective adaptation acceleration, she explained. We modify the squirrels to be even more sensitive to Phloxian presence, essentially making them naturally avoid populated areas while still fulfilling their ecological role. You want to make the squirrels afraid of Phloxians? Jack asked. What? Not afraid, exactly. More respectfully avoidant, Dr. Vega clarified. But there's a catch. To implement this, we need access to the colony's central environmental control system, which the Phloxians will never grant, Jack realized. Not willingly, Mack agreed, a mischievous look in his eye. But they did hire us to solve their problem, one way or another. Jack considered their options. The contract authorized them to take necessary measures to address the infestation. It didn't specifically prohibit access to colony systems. Bert, he said finally, how quickly can you hack into the environmental controls without being detected? Approximately 3 minutes, the AI replied. Phloxian security is excellent, but they never anticipated defense against a quantum algorithmic intelligence. Do it, Jack ordered. Dr. Vega, prepare your adaptation serum. Mack, finish those green zones. We're going to save this colony, whether they like it or not. As they implemented their plan, Administrator Plex arrived with the security team. Captain Holloway, the Phloxian said coldly. The Council has reconsidered. We've decided to terminate your contract and handle this situation ourselves. I'm afraid that's not possible, Jack replied calmly. We've already begun implementing the solution. You've what? Plex spluttered. Without authorization? Actually, your contract gives us full authority to address the infestation using our professional judgment, Jack countered. And right now, our professional judgment says we need to move quickly before your entire colony suffocates. This is outrageous, Plex protested. Security, shut down their operation immediately. I wouldn't do that if I were you, Dr. Vega warned. Interrupting the process now could trigger an immediate ecological collapse. Your colony's oxygen levels are already critically low. The standoff was interrupted by an emergency broadcast from the colony's environmental monitoring system. Warning, atmospheric composition approaching dangerous levels. Oxygen depletion accelerating. All citizens advised to remain indoors until further notice. Plex's face paled to an almost white shade of blue. What have you done? We haven't done this, Jack said firmly. This is what happens when you disrupt an ecosystem without understanding it first. Now, are you going to let us fix it, or would you prefer to evacuate your entire colony? 3 weeks later, Jack stood in the central plaza of Phlox-Epsilon, marveling at the transformation. The once sterile environment now featured elegant green zones, carefully designed garden spaces that blended seamlessly with the colony's geometric architecture. "I must admit," Administrator Plex said, standing beside him, "the result is not as offensive as I anticipated." "High praise indeed," Jack replied with a smile. The crisis had been averted through a combination of Dr. Vega's adaptive biological engineering and a complete redesign of the colony's environmental systems. The squirrels now instinctively avoided Phloxian-populated areas while maintaining their crucial ecological role in the designated green zones. "The latest atmospheric readings show oxygen levels returning to optimal parameters," Plex continued, examining his datapad. "And the insect population has stabilized." "And the squirrels?" Jack asked. "They remain tolerable," Plex conceded reluctantly, "though I still find their methods of reproduction and elimination disturbing." "That's why we installed the privacy hedges," Jack pointed out. "What happens in the green zone stays in the green zone." Dr. Vega approached, looking satisfied with her work. "The adaptation is holding beautifully. The squirrels are now naturally avoiding Phloxian areas while thriving in their designated spaces. In fact, the colony's overall environmental health is actually improving." "The Council has authorized your full payment," Plex announced, "plus a bonus for your ecological consultation services." The administrator looked like each word physically pained him. "We appreciate that," Jack said. "Though I'm curious, why did you ultimately decide to adapt to the squirrels rather than continue trying to eliminate them?" Plex's vertical pupils contracted slightly, the Phloxian equivalent of embarrassment. "Our scientist reviewed your great-grandfather's original research. It appears he had predicted this exact scenario and tried to warn the original colony planners. They ignored his advice." "Seems to run in the family," Jack muttered. "Being ignored by clients, I mean." "Perhaps," Plex admitted, "we Phloxians occasionally put our aesthetic preferences above practical considerations. A cultural flaw we are working to address." As they walked through the colony, Jack noticed something remarkable: Phloxians observing the squirrels from a safe distance, some even appearing curious rather than disgusted. "You've sparked something of a nature appreciation movement," Plex explained, noting Jack's surprise. "Several of our younger citizens have begun studying terrestrial ecology as a result of this incident." Back on the Verminator, the crew prepared for departure. "Triple pay plus a bonus," Mack said cheerfully, counting their credits. "Not bad for a job where we nearly destroyed an entire ecosystem." "Before saving it," Dr. Vega corrected. "I've been invited to submit a paper to the Federation's ecological journal about the adaptive properties of the squirrels. This could actually advance our understanding of terraforming and restore the Holloway family name in scientific circles," Jack added. "My great-grandfather would be proud." "Incoming transmission," Bert announced. "Priority level, urgent." "Not another emergency," Jack groaned. "We just fixed this one." The view screen activated, revealing a reptilian alien with iridescent scales. "Captain Holloway," the alien hissed. "I am Director Slith of the Draconian Mining Consortium. We have heard of your unique approach to pest management." "Word travels fast," Jack remarked. "We have a situation on our primary ore processing facility," Slith continued. "A small infestation of what I believe you humans call rabbits. They appeared after a trade ship visited last month." "Rabbits?" Jack repeated, shooting a worried glance at Dr. Vega. "As in creatures known for their reproductive capabilities?" "Indeed," Slith confirmed. "We have approximately 50 of them now. Our sensors suggest there will be several hundred by next week." "Several thousand is more likely," Dr. Vega murmured. "We are prepared to offer 5 times your standard rate for immediate assistance," Slith said. "These creatures are disrupting our mining operations by digging holes everywhere." Jack considered their options. On one hand, another ecological nightmare waiting to happen. On the other hand, 5 times standard pay. "We'll take the job," he decided. "Send us your coordinates. And whatever you do, don't try to handle this yourselves. Rabbits are considerably more prolific than squirrels." As the transmission ended, Jack turned to his crew with a grin. Well, team, looks like Holloway's pest management solutions is back in business. Bert, set a course for the draconian mining facility. Oh joy, the AI replied sarcastically. Rabbits, because what could possibly go wrong with creatures literally famous for multiplying? Jack laughed, feeling more confident than he had in years. Maybe we should update our company slogan. How about Holloway's ecosystem management solutions? We balance what bugs you. Still terrible, Bert sighed. But marginally less homicidal. I suppose that's progress. As the Verminator's engines fired up, Jack couldn't help thinking that his great-grandfather would indeed be proud. Not of the near disaster they'd caused, but of the balance they'd ultimately restored. Sometimes it turned out the best solution wasn't removing the vermin, but learning to live with them. After all, one species' pest was another species' ecological linchpin. And in the grand scheme of the galaxy, weren't they all just trying to find their place in the universe? Even if that place occasionally involved defecating in public.